So I'd like to talk a little bit about how we're thinking of the cloud and how we're thinking of the cloud and print. You're going to see the first parts of our technology starting to be released, but I'd like to give you the background so that you can see that the journey that we're on and we're hoping that you'll take with us. There is a journey here. But I'll start with my favorite picture. I love the thought of this, the thought that I can be anywhere without a cable, sitting there with a cup of coffee and working, or trying to work anyway. I'm sure that would be distracting. But I want to, just to recap a couple of points from the last slide, the last talk. The internet and the cloud are growing exponentially. And I hope you've got a sense of what exponential means. It's that periodic and regular doubling. Because of that, enterprises are moving all their services and all their infrastructure off to the cloud. And all you need is an endpoint, whatever that may be, Mac, Windows, iPad, Surface, Android, whatever. All you need is an endpoint and a network connection. And that network connection, you have a lot of options now, and the options are growing. So, with that in mind, I'd like to take a step back first and just talk a little bit about the cloud in general. As IT professionals, I'm sure you've met some of these terms. I'm just going to take a couple of slides just to bring in a little bit of background about what the cloud is. So, the National Institute of Standards has some definitions of services. The first is that they're on-demand self-service. I can join up whenever I want. I'm self-service. It's just like Dropbox. I go to a website, I join up, and I'm done. So it needs to be self-service. By broad network access, they actually mean I can run it on anything. I can run it on an iPad or whatever. It doesn't matter. With resource pooling, they specify you should have resource pooling to be a cloud service. And what that actually means is it's more like a multi-tenanted site. I don't have a server that's devoted to a customer or devoted to a particular action. What I have is a pool of services that are devoted to all of my customers. And we term that multi-tenanted. And the advantage of that is that whatever is happening inside that infrastructure is shared. The advantages of that infrastructure is shared by all my customers. A cloud service needs to have rapid elasticity. It needs to be able to grow rapidly and shrink rapidly, and the costs will do that too. So that if I bring on another building into whatever infrastructure I'm providing, another 1,000 people, the cloud just scales up at the drop of a hat, and maybe scales down every night as my need for services go away. And of course, it's a measured service so that it's metered and paid for perhaps on a monthly basis or an annual rent or whatever. So that's what the NIST has defined as a cloud service, and I think it's a good place to start. Further, there's several styles of cloud delivery, each one of which has some advantages and disadvantages. There's infrastructure as a service, which is really you're buying a virtual machine and you're managing operating systems and software stacks and network stacks and connectivity and VPNs, and you're managing the software as well, you're writing the software. It just feels like what you're doing, it's like hosting. You're taking one of your services, putting it in a VM and throwing it up into the cloud. But it doesn't meet any of the NIST's definitions of cloud. Maybe it's metered, but it's not resource pooled. It's not going to scale. And you're having to do a lot of work in managing the infrastructure and infrastructure as a cloud. But it is a style of cloud delivery. The next one is platform as a service. As we're walking up the pyramid here, you can see that you have less and less need to be involved in the infrastructure. There's less and less work to do. With platform as a service, you're still, as an organization, writing some code which you deliver to an some internal part of your organization. And it might run inside an environment that you don't have to manage. For example, a Google App Engine or Microsoft Azure allows you to write code fragments that are moved up. They deal with the scaling. They'll scale it out as needed and scale it back. It's certainly a step up from infrastructure as a service, but you're still having to write the software, manage the software. And the last one is software as a service, the pinnacle of the pyramid. And you saw that's where the growth lives. There's a huge amount of growth happening. It's doubling at a very, very fast clip. Software as a service is just buying a service. It's Dropbox. It's NetAccount, our accounting service. We have nothing to do with it. We pay a monthly fee. We get however many accounts we get, and we use it. That's where the growth is. And of course, as I mentioned, hosting is kind of, taking a host and moving it off somewhere. The downside of hosting is that you've got the same service that you had before, but now you've added the tyranny of distance. You've moved it out somewhere, and you don't have direct control over it. It's not here in front of you where it's under your control. It may feel better in some ways because someone's looking after that server or that virtual machine, but you've added the issues of distance. So of the cloud styles there, we can see software as a service is growing rapidly, and for good reason. There's nothing for you to do but to pay a monthly fee. Now, enterprises are also dealing with several types of delivery of those same cloud services. The one we're familiar with, Azure or things delivered out of AWS, are public clouds. They're clouds that anyone can connect to, anyone can create a service in, and anyone can use. Now, some organizations don't feel comfortable with that, and they create private clouds. That's a cloud that could live inside their data center. It may or may not truly be a cloud by the NIST definition. It might not be multi-tenanted. It might not be auto-scaling. But it's living inside their data center, and they're doing that usually for security reasons. Another style of that is using virtual private networks, where you create a set of services living in Amazon, but you then wall it off from everybody else and join it to your network via a private network. That's relatively common. And another one is a hybrid cloud, where you've kind of got a mix of all of these. So these are commonly in use today, and they're common ways to deliver it. As a customer, you have a choice. You can buy software as a service, and that deliverer of software as a service may be using any of these infrastructure styles behind the scenes to deliver it to you. But the beauty about software as a service is you don't care. You buy a contract, you pay a fee, you use a service. Now, just with those sort of definitions in mind, because we do use them periodically, I'd like to talk about how we see the cloud. So what do we think are the key tenets? What are the founding principles behind us using the cloud? Now, the key to this is the cloud is a tool. It is not a reason for doing anything. It's like virtualization. It's simply a tool that you add to make things better for you, for yourself, for your customers. The founding principles that we have are devoted to making things better. For the users, we want a better story for them. They need to be mobile. Mobility was the by far number one request of our customers over the last couple of years, which is why we started to build MobilePrint, and how MobilePrint's out there. The app's now out there in the App Store that people can use. Number one request from students and staff by far was mobility. In fact, it's one of the key areas of spending in the enterprise today: security and mobility and the cloud. Those are the three largest areas of infrastructure spending today. So the cloud, if we're going to do the cloud, we want to do it for a good reason, and these are our reasons. For IT, we want a simple install. I know that both Uniprint and Blueprint, they're big, complex products, they've got a history, they scale to the enterprise, to global enterprises, and in the case of Blueprint, we have customers with 400,000 staff, we have customers who are running it across the world, doing worldwide secure release. We know we scale, but we don't have the simplicity that we need to provide. Everyone wants that iPhone experience where there is no manual. You don't have a manual. You don't have to use it. It's a complex device, but you don't need a manual. We need to reduce infrastructure. Within our enterprises, reduce my infrastructure is the largest request we receive. Like, we have a customer who's running 300 print servers. It's like to think about that. Think about what the upgrade rollout time is like when you're running 300 print servers. It's a major infrastructure investment. We need to reduce your management. There's a lot of time spent managing print. And I'll come to that in a minute. There's some big data behind how much time of your time is spent, or your organization time is spent managing print, and it's not good. Lastly, we need this to be secure, end to end. You know that a lot of print traffic is still unencrypted, most print traffic. When was the last time, unencrypted traffic left your PC? Dropbox is all encrypted. Office 365, it's all over HTTPS, it's all encrypted. But print didn't quite get there. And we see some big shifts in the market too. We see people don't want to have that big software purchase with the annual maintenance. They just want to rent. Software as a service, pay as you go, pay as you use, and let it scale where you need it. Why are you paying for all of that massive infrastructure, those hundreds of print servers which are completely idle every evening? We want a multi-tenant so that anything we do for one customer is shared by all. We think that anything we do for you should be something that is shared by all of our customers. As we learn about a new piece of hardware that's come out or some new capability, everyone should get it. And everyone should get it without having to go through a massive install. And we want to rapidly evolve. And that is something that tools like the cloud can give us. The rapid evolution can come about. When was the last time you installed anything to make a change to your Office 365 environment or Pages running on iCloud? You don't have to do anything. It's a web-delivered app. It's different. Each time maybe every month or so, you get a new capability. So this is what's driving us. It's not the cloud per se. The cloud is a tool. It's these principles that are driving us forward. But the cloud is quite different. Now, I'd like to talk about one of those differences. Don't know if you've seen this guy before. He's the Chaos Monkey. Now, Netflix have a cloud-delivered service. And as a cloud-delivered service, one of the tenets that AWS CTO expounds is that you design for failure. You design so that any part of your service can fail at any time, and yet the rest of your service will pick up and carry on as usual. So it's either graceful degradation of service, or simply you pick up whatever it was doing and continue working. Now, when was the last time you actually pulled the power plug out of one of your print servers? Right, never, right? No one does that. No one does that intentionally. The idea of the Chaos Monkey was that it does that. It's a tool that Netflix use. It sits there in the background, and periodically it simply pulls the power out of one of their worker services. Kills it. Killed 62,000 services in 2012, which was the last data I found for it. 62,000 of their server instances just evaporated suddenly. And did anyone notice? The answer is no. But they have it running there constantly because they want to be constantly challenged. They've developed this service for resilience and reliability. And that's something you can achieve with cloud technologies. So, the Chaos Monkey is just an example of the difference between designing for the data center, where we're talking about server instances that have to live. You've probably virtualized your services. They're living in a vSphere environment or maybe Microsoft's environment. And it has to stay up 24/7, and if it goes down, there is stress, there is unhappiness, and so on. And the cloud is different. So, what should print look like if we move it out of your data center and into the cloud, or we start going through that process? What is print as it should be? Well, let's start by talking about print today. So I looked about 10 years ago, there was a number that floated around from a Gartner study, I believe, that about 30% of help desk calls were print related. 30%. So I looked for a newer number, and I found this. It's down to around 25. So I think we can see, and this is something that, that others of ours have talked about, that print has not changed a great deal in the last 10 years. It's still a difficult manufacturing process. It is challenging to put out pieces of paper, thousands of pieces of paper every month. One of our customers was talking, he's doing 100,000 pages a day out of their print. To have that rolling regularly is hard. It's a manufacturing process. But still, 25% of help desk calls are still print related. Print driver management. When you are running hundreds of models of devices, which some organizations are, or even when you're running just a few models of device, you still have to manage print drivers. You have to get them onto every desktop. If you're an enterprise who has a standard infrastructure, a standard desktop image, it's probably easier, although everybody has to point to a different server and to a different printer. But if you don't, driver management is hard, and it's been hard for a long, long time. If you don't have print management, then finding devices on the network is hard. If you have thousands of devices on any particular area of your network and someone hits find printer in Windows, and whew, that's which printer is which. You have many servers. I mentioned our customer who has 300 print servers, all running Blueprint. And there's costs. If you do need to do a vendor switch out, you've now got driver changes, retraining, supplies management has to change. That's hard. And lastly, print is still insecure. Your CEO's offer to purchase some other organization is flowing unencrypted across the network. No matter how much you're putting into protecting and encrypting his desktop and his file store, his print traffic is quite possibly unencrypted. And to put that in a higher education context, the exams that are about to be given to those students is potentially being printed in draft mode by some lecturer on some device and unencrypted. So we still have some problems that have been there for a long time. So we sat down and thought, what should print be? If we were to redesign it today, what characteristics would it have? Well, first of all, we talk about this driver for life. Why are we switching print drivers constantly? Why do I have more than one print driver on my desktop? I just want one print driver, and I want to go file print and have it go somewhere and then follow me to a device and come out. We kind of achieve that with secure release here. Across the industry, there are a number of secure release here products, and we do kind of achieve that. Not the driver for life, not the single driver. Manufacturers are trying to get on board with universal drivers, and there are some universal drivers, but let me put universal with a little u because they're not cross-platform at all. You know, they're not cross-manufacturer. You still have to have at least one universal driver for every manufacturer that you talk to, and potentially multiple universal drivers within a manufacturer. Mobility is not dealt with well at scale. It kind of works at home if you're using AirPrint or maybe Google Cloud Print, but when you get into the enterprise, when you get into the large organization, then those products just don't work as well. They don't scale across subnets. They don't deal with firewalls. They don't route properly. So we got to deal with mobility properly. As I said, it's the number one ask, especially in our higher education institutions, and I believe once we solve other problems, it will be the number one ask inside the enterprise too. Everyone wants mobility. I can see a number of people here typing on iPads and typing no. What are we going to do when we get home and we want to print those or maybe share them? We want to print from anything to anything, from an Android, from an iPad, from my phone. I want to be able to print if I need it. And next, we want to get rid of the massive infrastructure. You have a big investment in your print infrastructure with websites, with driver management tools, with servers, with the training for the people who manage that. We've got to break that. I think it's unnecessary today. You've seen what I showed you with the exponential growth in the cloud and the computing infrastructure available to us. I think it's time for us to do this properly. We need minimal management. We need to get you guys out of the, or your staff, out of the day-to-day running of print drivers and print and failed print and jammed and all that stuff. And we need to do instant installs. Our software is not the easiest install, absolutely. And we want to fix that. We need security out of the box. We live in a hostile, especially the higher education world, you live in a hostile environment. You define the hostile environment. I've been to universities where they have hacker courses being taught, and then, you know, don't try this here, please. Well, that's not going to work. Corporates are the same. It's a hostile world. It's a very hostile world. And lastly, we want to create flexibility. Right now, when I print, that's it. It's in a frozen form. There is nothing I can do with that print job. When I walk up to a device, that device has to accept what I've generated, period. Whatever options I may want to change, I have no ability, no capability to change that. We want to build flexibility into that process so I can walk up to a color device and say, no, don't put it in color, put it in black and white, please. It's a draft. Or I want an extra copy. So these are the founding principles that we're bringing to Print as It Should Be. This is what we want to achieve for you over the next few years. Now, why should you trust us? What considerations should we have in the design of Print as It Should Be? Obviously, we need security. I'm going to harp on security. It's the number one place for investment in enterprises today. The number one, security. And I got to say, we're not doing a great job of it as an industry yet, but it will come. Secondly, for you to trust us, we need to be sure, you need to be sure, that we're going to have bandwidth to provide the solution. Well, I think I've started to address that. Bandwidth is coming. Next, we need to address mobility. Again, mobility is coming. We've got mobile apps out there that are starting to gain traction. We need to be sure that the solution we provide has reliability. So right now, you have control over your print environment. It's in your hands. Your servers are under your control. You can tell, you don't let anyone shut down that server unless it is at an agreed time, when there's no print load around, when no one's using it, everyone's expecting it, right? What happens when you outsource that to someone, if someone's living that in the cloud? How can you trust that we are providing the reliability that your users expect? Because if we foul up, you're the ones who are going to get it in the neck. So you need to trust that we understand and have reliability. And second is resilience. Now, resilience to me is what happens when things do go wrong, and things do go wrong. What happens when the chaos monkey strikes and we lose some servers? Do we gracefully degrade? Do we fail? What happens when the internet goes down? To me, that's resilience. It's about how do we deal with failure. You need to be trusting that we have resilience in our solution and reliability. And lastly, the print workflow. We need to make sure that we've solved the print workflow. You need to trust us. We need to show you that we can solve the print workflow problems that exist today. So, of course, if we want to solve this, one way we could do this is we could simply run Uniprint and Blueprint in the cloud. I know there are solutions out there where you take an existing solution, hand it off to a third-party vendor, put it in the cloud in inverted commas, and that's a solution. It's a hosted solution. Okay, that's a start. Does it give you resilience? Does it give you reliability? What happens when the chaos monkey strikes? It's not in your control anymore. You've handed that server off to someone else. It's no longer in your control. But there's nothing that's changed about that service or server to give you the extra reliability or resilience. All you've done is you've added a tyranny of distance. You've added a air gap between you and your server. It doesn't solve drivers. If you simply add a hosted solution, and we have run Uniprint and Blueprint in an AWS instance, by the way, it works. It can be made to work. It doesn't solve print drivers. It doesn't solve resilience. There are performance and bandwidth considerations today. If you're running on a 3 megabit connection and you print a 50 megabit color PostScript job, that's going to cause you a problem. So moving print to the cloud actually requires a clean sheet solution. Don't want to mix that up. And hosting it is merely a stopgap. It's merely an interim thing to do. Doing it right is actually not easy because we have a lot of problems to solve in here, but we want to do it right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through a small instance of a piece of the infrastructure that we're building, just to show you. It's a very small piece, but I just want to show you, give you an impression of what is different about building a service in the cloud like print. So what I'm doing here is, this is just a piece of one of our Amazon front ends. There's a web layer and there's an application layer. It's just a little piece, but I'd like to show you where we're different. So when you're talking about a service that's being delivered in, say, AWS, delivered over HTTPS, first of all, security. We have a front end that only does HTTPS. All traffic is HTTPS. You're used to that in the cloud. That's the way it should be. But we're only exposing a limited API, which is simply the print API. We have an elastic load balancer, which then takes the query and assigns it to a set of compute units, which are called an auto-scaling group. So the chaos monkey can go and strike any of these, and it doesn't matter, because the auto-scaling group scales up and down with load. If 1,000 users arrive at 9 a.m. and hit print, the scaling group scales up to deal with the load. And it hands off the query to the next party. So we have an auto-scaling unit designed to deal with print requests as they come in. If any of those fail, it doesn't matter. And in fact, each of those components can be run in multiple zones. So if you want, we can scale the elastic load balancer, our S3 store, our database, our request queues. They can actually be automatically distributed across multiple zones, which are independently provisioned, independent networks, independent power supplies. If necessary, we can distribute some of these across regions. So run one in New York East and run one in California West and so Pacific West and so on. So what you can see here is that the design of this app looks very, very different. The design of any system in the cloud is very different when it's done properly. But we're able to build resilience, we're able to build reliability and performance. Our scaling group scales up and down. Our request queue is distributed and replicated across multiple environments. And this is secure. So, where are we with this? We have started an infrastructure called Beacon, and you're going to hear a lot about Beacon today. We've started to move along the path. Beacon is, initially, we've started a cloud services that will manage your devices for you. It has fleet management, it has print analytics, and it has a Uniprint connector so we can feed data out of Uniprint, or it can run standalone and just look around your network, find all your devices, figure out what they're doing, figure out tone levels, uptime, warn you if they're down. We can do analytics and figure out why have you got print volume. If you're in the back office and you're looking at your staff, what's generating all the print volume that you're creating? Because you probably can't find that out today. That's what analytics can give you. It can understand the behaviors that's generating print. Now, Beacon's there. The infrastructure has been built. This graph that you're seeing, that beautiful exponential curve that I love to look at, that is actually devices that are currently under management. We currently have 100,000 devices and 500 customers under Beacon's management. And we're growing at between 500 and 1,000 a day devices. All cloud managed, trivial install, and it's running out of our instances which are living in AWS. Highly reliable, never gone down yet. So we've started. Beacon is what is the technology that we're going to be talking about over the next couple of days. Now this is the journey. We have a path that we want to walk down with you. Today, we have built the cloud platform that is needed to manage print. It's not easy, but that's the idea, is that it's going to be hard for us, and we need to make it easy for you. Today, we have our cloud platform, we have fleet management, and we have document analytics available. And as I said, we've got about 100,000, and we have that beautiful exponential curve doubling periodically. In the next couple of days, you're going to see our next tranche, the next part of the journey, in our print center, which has been moved into the cloud. It's a cloud tool that you can now get with no install. Our reports are moving into the cloud. That's going to be a longer process, but reports are moving into the cloud. Our payment processor has moved into the cloud. We offer remote administration, troubleshooting tools. They're all delivered in the cloud. And the idea is that reports take time, for example. We won't have all the reports ready by, say, June, when the summer install season starts. We'll just keep adding reports as they're developed. You don't have to do anything, they just appear. It's the beauty of a cloud solution. So our user admin tools, you're going to be seeing quite a few of them over the next couple of days. And they're all cloud delivered. There's one install at the start just to hook everything together between your internal and external components, and then it just works. And lastly, the next step of the journey we're taking is the print path. We are solving the print path problem inside of print. We're going to get rid of your servers. We're going to properly solve mobile. We have a universal driver that will work everywhere and anywhere. To do print right is not something that we can just say, boom, it's done. This is a journey that we're hoping to take you on. But the beauty of a cloud solution is that whatever you have today is slowly going to get better with no work on your behalf. We will make that happen for you. So the game is changing. It's starting today. This is the first time we're starting to push out some of our solutions with the print tools. And we're excited. I mean, this is a big change for us. The game is changing. Print is changing. It's time that we started to move this infrastructure into the cloud too. So, with that, I'd like to thank you all again. I will be here for, oh my goodness, I will be here for the next 2 days. I would love to set aside, it's very, I'm speechless.
I want to thank Scott for making it an opportunity that we can proudly wear the leopard skin robe.
Oh, that is gorgeous.
I encourage anybody in the community who wants to participate, feel free to take advantage of it. That's right, there's a underneath.
So over the next couple of days, I'm here, and the rest of my trip is about trying to talk to you about what you're doing with the cloud. You've all been faced with the challenges of the cloud. I know you're all starting to think about infrastructures. Have you moved mail over yet? Are you looking at Office 365? I want to talk with you about how we want to move to the cloud, and I want to understand what your challenges are with that and how we can address them. So come up and grab me, set aside some time sometime. I'm here till Friday, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.